That's a lot of nerve considering the alternative is somebody that don't want nothing to do with you.
Yes!
Miss Ramlas had been in a 4-year relationship with Mr. Seymour when she became involved with another man named Mr. Covington, and now she was in court trying to determine which of the two was the father of her son.
First, everything was going really well. I was going to school, going to work, and he was like my financial and...
She maintained that the affair with Mr. Covington had not occurred during the same week her son was conceived, but the conception window and the affair timeline were close enough that the court needed the science to settle what the memory could not. 2 men, 1 child, and a relationship history complicated enough to require a judge to sort through.
like spiritual guidance I needed in life, and it was just sex
You
behind the dumpster.
Mr. Seymour had started the relationship as a stabilizing presence in Miss Ramlas's life before his own behavior became the source of friction between them. Rumors had reached her about his activities, and the content of those rumors had pushed her toward a break from the relationship.
I tell him, like, okay, so you do you, I'm gonna do me, and we took a break at that. All right.
The problem with the break was that it was not clean. She continued seeing Mr. Seymour periodically during the supposed separation while simultaneously beginning her involvement with Mr. Covington. The boundary between being apart and being together had been blurry enough to create the paternity problem, now sitting in front of Judge Lauren.
So this ended your relationship. You took a break.
Partially, it ended our relationship. Other incidents.
During the period, Miss Ramlas had been wearing a ring Mr. Seymour had given her, described by her as a promise ring she had been involved with Mr. Covington. Mr. Seymour had been deeply affected by that detail specifically.
We're on our break. I decided to see other people. I cheated on him basically out of spite.
The ring had come from his mother, and whatever Miss Ramlas's understanding of what it symbolized, his understanding had been considerably more significant. The gap between how each of them had understood that gesture became its own painful thread running through the larger tapestry of the hearing.
I was like, okay, he's doing him, so I'm gonna do me. And I had a mutual friend I'd been talking to for like 3 months.
The origin of the break had been driven by a rumor Miss Ramlas had heard about Mr. Seymour's behavior. She had acted on that rumor without fully verifying it, and the action she had taken pursuing a relationship with another man had consequences that outlasted whatever truth or falsehood the original rumor contained.
Then what happens, Mr. Seymour?
I proposed her with my mom's ring, and she still got
Proposed
here.
to her with
The twist that followed was notable. The same person who had delivered the rumor to Miss Ramlas had also gone to Mr. Seymour and told him about Miss Ramlas's involvement with Mr. Covington. The information broker in this situation had apparently been working both sides of the relationship simultaneously.
your mother's ring.
Yes, ma'am, she still got here and betray me.
Am I correct?
Yes, Sean.
Miss Ramlas had made a decision about the birth certificate that reflected her assessment of the situation at the time. Rather than leaving it unresolved or placing Mr. Seymour's name on it, she had arranged for Mr. Covington to sign the document. The deliberateness of that choice was something the courtroom examined
Okay, I had sex with DJ and I had sex with Jeremy. Jeremy might be the father. I'm 100% for.
carefully. It was not a passive outcome, it was an active decision made by someone who had evaluated both men and arrived at a conclusion that the birth certificate then formalized. Whether that conclusion was correct, the DNA test had been summoned to determine.
Sure, Jeremy's the father, but then again, I had sex with DJ. Look at it like, hey.
Mr. Seymour had been present for medical appointments during at least 3 months of the pregnancy, a detail that complicated his current position of doubt. A man who attended prenatal visits had been operating with some level of assumed.
Girl that said I had sex with a strip behind the dumpster told me that.
I told him myself.
paternity during that period, regardless of what he later claimed about his certainty. Miss Ramlas pointed to that involvement as evidence of his connection to the situation. Mr. Seymour's presence at those appointments told a story that his courtroom denial was now trying to revise.
Wait a minute. The same person that told you he had sex behind the dumpster told...
Mr. Covington was brought into the proceedings, and his account added another dimension to the case. He had been brought in bearing a signed birth certificate and an assumption about his own role in this child's life that the hearing was about to dismantle.
Argument, and I had got mad, and I was like, you know what? Well, let me just put it out there that it might be a possibility.
The question of whether Miss Ramlas had been transparent with him about the full scope of the paternity uncertainty was one the courtroom considered carefully. A man who had signed a birth certificate deserved to know the complete picture of the situation he was signing into, and the evidence suggested that picture had not been fully shared with him.
He's somebody else's father. That's far as that. He's been there through his pregnancy. He's went to more
Cause
than
he
3.
dead.
The DNA results arrived, and neither of the two men in that courtroom was identified as the biological father. Mr. Covington had come in with a birth certificate bearing his name and left with confirmation that his signature had not represented biological truth.
The manipulator, she's a liar.
No, I'm not. I did not manipulate you.
So hold on. I brought Mr. Covington in here because I want to understand his side.
The elimination of both tested men did not produce clarity. It produced a new and more complicated question. Miss Ramlas's son had a documented legal father who was not the biological father, and the actual biological father had not yet been identified. Like and subscribe, because the journey this result sends Miss Ramlas on after leaving that courtroom is a story that is far from over.
Yeah. She basically, she dead family, my brothers and nephews. So she feel like I'm the guy for her.
The outcome of the hearing had not closed the chapter. It had opened a new and more difficult. 2 men had been tested. Neither had been confirmed. The birth certificate bore one man's name, and the biology had refuted it.
Mr. Seymour, you are not the father.
Mr. Seymour had been present for prenatal appointments and had been cleared. Mr. Covington had signed legal documentation and had also been cleared. Miss Ramlas was leaving the courtroom with her son's paternity still unresolved and a search that would need to extend to someone who had not yet been part of the conversation.
Mr. Covington, you are not the father.
Seriously?
The decisions that had produced this outcome were spread across the full arc of the relationship. A rumor acted upon without verification, a separation that had not been clean, a ring worn while seeing another man, and a birth certificate signed under circumstances that had not fully accounted for all the relevant information.
That has to be somewhat wrong, though. Not even.
Somewhat wrong.
Judge Lauren had presided over a hearing that had resolved exactly one thing. The identity of the father was not in that room. The little boy at the center of all of it deserved an answer, and the answer was still out there somewhere waiting to be found.
Yes,
All
it
the
has
way
to be
wrong.
wrong.
What? 2 years?
Let me tell you something. Men lie.
Ms. Capples walked into that courtroom with one objective: to get Mr. Harris to sign the birth certificate for her 15-month-old son. Mr. Harris walked in with an equally firm objective: to make sure that did not happen.
Mr. Harris, I made him my man crush Monday. He's a good guy.
His girlfriend was present, and her presence made the stakes of the hearing visible before anyone had said a single word. 3 people with competing interests, 1 child who had not seen his alleged father in over a year, and a paternity question that neither conviction nor calendar could resolve without science.
Hardworking, good father. We messaged back and forth on Facebook for a while. After that, we exchanged numbers.
The foundation of the case had some cracks in it before the arguments even began. Mr. Harris disputed basic elements of Ms. Capples' account of how they had come to know each other, including whether they had attended the same high school. The contested origin story was a signal that these 2 people had very different versions of their shared.
Dating, he told me about the situation and was like, I was talking to some girl. I may have a possible baby with her, whatever.
History, and the disagreement extended well beyond the paternity question to the most basic facts of their connection. One of them was misremembering, and one of them was not telling the complete truth, and the courtroom was going to have to figure out which was which.
So and one day we're out with the kids bowling and she wrote him in, oh, that B.
Ms. Capples' feelings about Mr. Harris and his girlfriend had produced behavior that undercut her position in the hearing. She had been sending messages and expressing opinions about the girlfriend in ways that did not align with the detached, practical tone she was trying to project in court.
We started talking around September, Mr. Harris. Anyways, like I said, all the way up until the beginning of May. If you go back 9 months.
The emotions behind her pursuit of the birth certificate signing were more complicated than a simple desire to establish legal paternity for her son. The courtroom was observing someone who wanted recognition from a specific person and was using legal process as the vehicle for that pursuit.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is the window of conception where my son was born. And this is within the time frame that I was still intimate with Mr. Harris.
Ms. Capples arrived with a calendar exhibit. She had highlighted specific days and months to construct a visual timeline supporting her calculation of the conception window and her argument for Mr. Harris's paternity.
He did not tell me that he was dealing with other women while me and him were talking. So I did not know that he was playing the fifth.
And text other women back.
I went through your phone. I didn't. Yes, I did.
The level of preparation preparation behind the calendar was notable. It represented genuine effort to document her position with specificity. Whether the calculations were accurate or whether the effort itself would be enough to persuade a skeptical man and an even more skeptical girlfriend remained to be seen. The calendar was in the room and it was going to be examined.
Cut me off.
Yeah, that's
Please.
the time y'all stopped talking.
Girl. And you were there when he was...
You don't even know your real name.
You were.
Mr. Harris's girlfriend had not come as a passive observer. She was fully present in support of her partner and made no attempt to disguise her investment in the outcome. Her position was clear. She was not going to allow a paternity claim to reshape her relationship without a fight.
Her best friend, she told me that the kid is not mine. On social media, I was getting messages over people she knows, people her friends.
The dynamic her presence created was one where Ms. Capples was not just arguing with Mr. Harris, but with the life he had built since their involvement. That context colored everything that followed in the hearing.
Said she told you the child was not yours.
She told me not too long ago that she did have sex with one guy.
A friend of Ms. Capples had informed Mr. Harris that she had been involved with another man during the relevant period. Friend's disclosure had been one of the contributing factors to his doubt. Ms. Capples acknowledged the involvement, but provided context. She said it had occurred after she was already pregnant.
When she delivered the baby, the next morning I came up there. And
You did?
When I looked, he didn't look like me at all.
No, he does
and
not.
I had my doubt. I had been having my doubts, but like I say, everybody...
And that it had been a single instance she had not initially known about in terms of its timing relative to the pregnancy. The explanation was offered, but it was not received with immediate acceptance by anyone on Mr. Harris's side of the room.
Around town says that she goes around saying it's another guy's baby.
When you came up to the hospital to see the baby, did you sign the birth certificate?
No, I did not.
Mr. Harris stated that the child did not resemble him and Ms. Capples did not strongly contest that observation. The moment two people involved in a paternity dispute both acknowledge the child does not look like the alleged father is the kind of moment that raises immediate questions about why the case is being argued at all.
You come to the realization that that was you being angry, and now that's why you're here in court today, because you know that your child deserved to have mother and father listed on his birth certificate.
Yes.
Mr. Harris had not signed the birth certificate. He had not been present at the birth. He had purchased items for the baby during the first few months, but had distanced himself from direct involvement. The gap between initial support and sustained absence was part of what the hearing needed to address.
Sure, I know.
How many times have you seen him?
Not a lot.
Yeah. She don't know that, but she...
I seen him
Oh, no, I don't
crack
want to
but-
Alexis around him.
Ms. Capples had not wanted him to sign the birth certificate at the time of delivery. 15 months later, she had changed her position and was now in court specifically to obtain that signature. The reversal itself was something Judge Lauren examined closely. A decision that had been actively prevented at the birth was now being actively pursued in a courtroom.
Want to know, since 15 months has passed and there's been no real attempt to get a DNA test, have you allowed him to be in Jason's life?
And the explanation for the change involved a realization that an earlier choice had been a mistake. Mr. Harris had also been prevented from seeing the child, and the access question was intertwined with the paternity question in ways that complicated both. Like and subscribe, because what happens when the DNA result is read publicly in front of the girlfriend is a moment this courtroom will not forget.
Because the baby's a year and a half now.
I did give him the opportunity, but he was always,
That's
what's the
not how
point of
it
that?
That was that
The result came, and it excluded Mr. Harris from biological paternity. Ms. Capples offered a public apology to Mr. Harris and his girlfriend before leaving the courtroom. The gesture acknowledged that her certainty had been misplaced.
Mr. Harris, you are not the father.
Thank
You
you.
didn't sleep with no one else.
And that the process she had put the people in that room through had been based on a belief the science had now disproven. The apology was noted, but it did not resolve the larger situation. Her son's father was still unidentified, and the calendar she had constructed so carefully had pointed at the wrong man.
Ms.
I would
Capel,
like to publicly apologize to Mr. Harris. I honestly thought that it was yours. We messed around. We were intimate a lot, and you know we were.
The hearing had produced an outcome that sent Ms. Capples back to the beginning of a search she had believed was already finished. Mr. Harris walked out confirmed as not the biological father of a child he had never fully claimed. His girlfriend walked out with the vindication of a position she had held from the start.
just learn from this lesson, because there's been a lot going on here. I mean, I was annoyed. I was disgusted by the behavior I witnessed.
And somewhere outside that courtroom, a 15-month-old boy was waiting for answers that the hearing had failed to produce. The biological father had not been found. The journey to find him was just beginning, and it was going to require Ms. Capples to look somewhere she had apparently not considered before walking into that room.
In this courtroom between you two women. This has been 2 years of drama for nothing.
Ms. Miller did not arrive in that courtroom with ambivalence about Mr. Rasmussen. She had brought him there specifically because the idea of him being her daughter's biological father was something she found deeply unwelcome, and she wanted the DNA to give her an exit from that possibility.
I have visitation. I drive 160 miles every other weekend just to pick up my daughter and drop her off. That's about 10,000 miles.
Mr. Rasmussen had an entirely different relationship with the situation. He had been present for this child since birth, had signed the birth certificate, and had been fighting for access ever since. He was not there to escape anything. He was there to confirm what he believed he already knew.
That's wear and tear on my car. She doesn't have a driver's license. She doesn't have any way to bring her to me. She doesn't have any way to meet me halfway.
The animosity Ms. Miller carried toward Mr. Rasmussen had a specific source. He had been unfaithful during their relationship, and the disrespect she had felt from that pattern had not faded. It had calcified into a refusal to share space with him, even when that space involved his alleged daughter.
Mad at him for being a cheater. He cheated on me through pretty much our whole relationship. No, I do not hate him because of that.
The cheating had ended whatever goodwill might have allowed them to co-parent without a courtroom, and Ms. Miller had constructed firm emotional walls around herself and the baby as a direct response to what she had experienced. Mr. Rasmussen's infidelity was not a background detail. It was the emotional engine driving everything else in the hearings.
He says this is about visitation, too. He loves his daughter, but you don't want him to have the visitation. Is that true?
Yes, Your Honor.
The consistent presence Mr. Rasmussen had maintained despite the hostility was documented and specific. He had driven 45 minutes from work to be at appointments. He had attended every medical visit. He had signed the birth certificate on the day the baby was born.
I want to be in her life as much as I possibly can.
I mean, if he's driving 160 miles each way every other weekend, the money he
had been paying child support. The record he had built was one of genuine involvement, regardless of the circumstances surrounding the relationship, and it sat in sharp contrast to the narrative Ms. Miller was trying to construct about his character and his worthiness of a role in the child's life.
Getting his taxes, he's spending in gas.
I'm paying my child support. I have my child support payments right here.
Ms. Miller had not restricted her own behavior to the moral high ground she was claiming from Mr. Rasmussen. The hearing surfaced her own infidelity during the relevant period, and she did not try to hide it. In fact, she appeared to use it as part of her argument. The possibility that someone else was the father was precisely why she was in court.
And listen, that's what we're here for. I want to get down to the bottom of the truth. You don't believe he's her biological father?
Yes, Your Honor.
Both of them had been unfaithful to each other, and one of them had become pregnant during the same window of overlapping involvements. The courtroom found itself in familiar territory. Two people who had both made choices that had produced the very uncertainty they were now asking a judge to resolve.
So explain to me why.
When she was conceived in March of 2011.
Ms. Miller's openness about having been with another man during the conception period was unusual compared to most paternity court defendants. Typically, the person being tested pushes towards certainty about one candidate while minimizing the existence of others.
Yes, Your Honor.
But clearly, at some point, Mr. Rasmussen either thought or was informed.
Ms. Miller was doing the opposite. She was actively pointing toward the possibility that someone else was the father, and using that possibility as the lens through which she wanted the hearing to be understood. The resentment toward Mr. Rasmussen was fueling a position that required her to acknowledge her own infidelity in public.
That he was her biological father because he is paying child support, he's still driving 160 miles each way, and she has his last name.
The timeline of when Ms. Miller had discovered additional infidelity on Mr. Rasmussen's part added a detail that deepened the already complicated picture. She had found out about it approximately 3 months after the baby was born. The question of whether the behavior had continued through the pregnancy and into the postpartum period.
I was at the birth. I was at every single doctor's appointment. When Zaylee was born, you were at a doctor's appointment. I was at home because I had to work that day.
Was sitting in the room unanswered. If the support he had shown during that time had been running alongside ongoing deception, it would require a reassessment of what his consistent presence had actually meant. Mr. Rasmussen's actions had been supportive, but the context around them was murkier than they appeared on the surface.
I was at my job as a cashier. I got a phone call and I answered it.
Mr. Rasmussen had not had easy access to his daughter. The relationship with the child had required legal effort. He had fought his way to visiting rights covering every other weekend. The fact that a man who had signed the birth certificate had to legally fight for basic visitation
and raise our daughter together until about 3 months after she was born. One of his friends told me
illustrated the level of obstruction Ms. Miller had placed between him and the child. His bond with the baby had been built across those limited windows, and despite the resistance, and despite hostility, and despite the hearing that was now attempting to dismantle the foundation of that bond entirely.
Everything that he was doing throughout our entire relationship, cheating on me, going to multiple places to meet multiple girls.
Ms. Miller had not disclosed the existence of the other potential father immediately, and that delay had allowed the assumption of Mr. Rasmussen's paternity to settle into the legal record for months before the challenge was raised. The birth certificate carried his name. He had been paying support based on that documentation.
But you know deep down there's another possible father.
Yes, Your Honor.
Why wait so long to tell him?
The timing of the challenge months after the birth, after the bond had formed, after the legal record had been established, was something Judge Lauren was factoring into her reading of the situation alongside the biology. Like and subscribe, because the result Judge Lauren is about to deliver carries consequences for a man who has been fighting to keep access to a child he may have already lost once.
I told him the first time that we had a court date, but the courts threw it out.
Even
DNA
before
test.
you tell anybody in court.
The bond Mr. Rasmussen described with this little girl was not theoretical. It had been built through doctor's appointments and alternating weekends, and the specific kind of investment that only happens when a person genuinely believes they are looking at their own child.
To have Mr. Rasmussen taken off of child support?
I have told him a couple times.
The prospect of the DNA contradicting that belief was not something he had prepared himself for, and the courtroom could see the vulnerability beneath the confidence he had been projecting. A result that confirmed his paternity would validate everything he had fought for. A result that did not would leave him with a bond the law might no longer protect.
That if he would just sign her over to me, that he wouldn't have to pay child support anymore.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give up that easy. I'm fighting for what I know is mine.
Ms. Miller had brought the case to strip away a connection she found intolerable because of who Mr. Rasmussen had been to her personally. Mr. Rasmussen had shown up to protect a connection that had become the most important thing in his life, regardless of everything else the relationship had produced.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Rasmussen, you.
The DNA was going to answer the biological question, but it was not going to answer the harder question of what happened to a child's relationship with a man who had been her father in practice if the science said he was not her father in biology. Judge Lauren held the envelope, and both of them braced for the answer that was finally
Are not the father. That's a lot of nerve, considering the alternative is somebody that don't want nothing to do with you.
Mr. Levin showed up to paternity court with his girlfriend, and that decision alone told the courtroom everything it needed to know about the kind of situation this was going to be.
Why do you think he's denying the baby?
Because of his girlfriend, of course. His girlfriend telling him lies.
The girlfriend tells him lies?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Allen was claiming he had been trying to keep their 6-month-old baby completely hidden, and she was not going to allow that silence to continue. His girlfriend had come to support him over a woman he had apparently been involved with, while the two of them were together. The layers were already stacking before Judge Lauren asked a single question.
Like what?
No, I don't.
Telling him that the baby don't look like him.
The girlfriend's opening argument rested on a resemblance claim she had looked at the baby and did not see Mr. Levant in the child's features. The courtroom received that with the standard response such arguments get in that room. Physical resemblance is not biology, and the existence of paternity court.
Mr. Levant, are you denying this child because you're trying to keep your relationship with your girlfriend
as an institution exists, precisely because what people think they see and what the DNA confirms are often different things. The deeper question how Ms. Allen had become comfortable enough with a man who had a girlfriend to reach this point was already sitting in the room alongside the resemblance argument.
No.
No. So you have a family together, you and your girlfriend?
Yes.
Mr. Levant's motivation for wanting to keep the baby hidden was not hard to identify once the full picture came into view. He and his girlfriend had 3 children together. He had a family, a relationship, and a life that did not publicly include Ms. Allen or the baby she was carrying.
The time we was going through something and we split up for just the one night.
You split up for one night?
Acknowledging the child would mean acknowledging that the life his girlfriend believed she was living had a significant portion of the story missing from it. The Father of the Year image he had built was about to be examined from a different angle.
It was not one night.
We just lit up.
Your Honor.
Like we was going through some stuff.
No, it wasn't.
And
Yes, it
The timeline of how this had all developed was longer and more deliberate than a single mistake. Ms. Allen had been in what she believed was a relationship with Mr. Levin since 2010. Throughout that entire period, he was simultaneously raising children with his girlfriend in another state.
Mr. Levant had a girlfriend and 3 children when you were sleeping with him?
No.
Yes, you did. Was it just a one-night stand?
No, it wasn't.
Ms. Allen had understood the arrangement as a long-distance relationship. Mr. Levant had apparently never told her he was single. The gap between her understanding of the situation and the reality of his life had been maintained for years without being corrected.
You commented on my firstborn child.
Like I said, we were together 2010.
Y'all never was together.
The long-distance framing explained the logistics of how Mr. Levant had kept both situations running simultaneously. Ms. Allen was in one state believing she had a boyfriend. His girlfriend was in another state raising their children and believing she had a committed partner.
We were dating 2010.
Y'all never was dating.
It was a long-distance relationship.
Mr. Levant was moving between both of them without either woman having the full picture. When the girlfriend had eventually discovered that Ms. Allen existed, she had told him to end contact. He had not ended the relationship. He had continued it for over 5 years total before it produced the paternity case, now sitting in Judge Lauren's courtroom.
That's not what he told me.
I met him through a mutual friend.
So you've known him since 2010?
Yes.
The conception window introduced another complication on Ms. Allen's side of the story. She had been involved with her own boyfriend during the same period when she had reconnected with Mr. Levin for a one-night encounter. She had broken up with that boyfriend before the reunion with Mr. Levin.
Oh, this Miss Lanier?
I knew about it, but I told him to stop contacting her.
They met in 2013, Your Honor.
We met in 2013.
And then the reunion had happened, and the pregnancy had followed. Both the ex-boyfriend and Mr. Levant were potentially within the biological window. The long-distance relationship had not been the only complexity in Ms. Allen's situation during the relevant period.
We had our first child in 2014.
You was
then
not there when we met
2015, and I just had a child right after you.
One out of there.
Social media had played a role in how information had moved through this case. Ms. Allen had apparently been aware of Mr. Levant's girlfriend and the children they shared through what she had seen online. The girlfriend had her own awareness of Ms. Allen through the same channel.
You are saying that Ms. Allen was intimate with another man somewhere during this timeline.
Both women had been observing each other's lives through a screen while sharing the same man without either of them being fully informed about the other's actual role. The Facebook dimension of the case had fed misunderstanding on multiple sides, and Judge Lauren was sorting through the layers of what had been seen versus what had been real.
Yes.
Can you tell the court where?
In the park.
It was not at the park.
The girlfriend's anger in the courtroom was directed primarily at Ms. Allen, but Judge Lauren redirected that energy toward its more accurate target. The person who had been physically involved with another woman in a park after a single argument in a 5-year relationship was not Ms. Allen.
Contacted me through social media on Facebook since 2014 when my first child was born.
The person who had been maintaining parallel relationships across state lines for years without full disclosure to either woman was not Ms. Allen. The girlfriend was pouring hostility at the person who was not responsible for the situation, and Judge Lauren was not going to let that misdirection go unaddressed. Like and subscribe, because Mr. Levant's reaction when the DNA result is read is one for the books.
So you knew.
She's been stalking us since day one.
The result was going to land on a man who had been running a double life for over 5 years and who had brought his girlfriend to court to support him in denying a child he had apparently been hoping to quietly erase. Whatever the science confirmed, the behavior that had produced the situation was already documented.
My last child in February.
You just had a child in February?
Yes.
Now, if this child, Ms. Allen's child, turns out to be...
And on the record, the girlfriend had come in with a semblance argument and was leaving with a much fuller picture of what her 5-year relationship had actually looked like behind the scenes. Mr. Levant's expression when the result was announced was the most honest moment he had shown the entire hearing.
Your boyfriend's biological child, is this relationship going to withstand?
No, it's not.
The courtroom had witnessed a 5-year concealment, 2 women kept deliberately uninformed, a baby being hidden from the family registry, and a girlfriend who had defended a man whose own testimony had revealed the full scope of what he had been doing throughout their relationship. Ms. Allen had believed she had a long-distance boyfriend.
Mr. Mitchell, you are not the father. Mr. Levant,
She had instead been a parallel track in a man's carefully managed double life. Judge Lauren had delivered not just a paternity result, but a full accounting of the situation that neither woman in that room had walked in fully understanding. Like and subscribe, because the conversation that follows this result between the girlfriend and Mr. Levant is one this episode only hints at.
You are not the father.
Yes!
Mr. Webb left for a medical emergency that brought him close to death and came back to find out his girlfriend had a baby bump and a paternity question attached to it. He had been waiting 2 years for this moment. 2 years since returning from a hospitalization that had changed everything.
How did you get yourself in this triangle?
My husband got in some trouble and I ended up meeting Mr. Webb through one of my friends.
And now he was finally in a courtroom to find out whether the child he had been thinking about since he woke up was actually his. Miss Forrest was on the other side, carrying a complicated relationship history and a husband who had somehow ended up in the same hearing.
We hit it off and then I ended up leaving Mr. Forrest for Mr. Webb.
So you began a sexual relationship?
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Forrest had a pattern of choosing volatile relationships, and her connection with Mr. Webb had developed in that context. The involvement had been unprotected and a pregnancy had followed. But the situation was not as simple as one man and one woman.
I had got a phone call saying that she was pregnant. I heard it from my aunt first, but
Miss Forrest had a husband, a separate relationship history, and the paternity question had not been narrowed to a single candidate before it arrived in this courtroom. Mr. Webb had been patient for 2 years. The hearing was going to test whether that patience had been pointed at the right person.
on my way to Illinois with my dad, she had called me and told me that it was a possibility that Elena was my child.
Mr. Webb had not heard about the pregnancy directly from Miss Forrest. The news had reached him through his aunt while he was traveling back from Illinois, still processing what his medical experience had cost him.
Some of her check would be coming up missing every time she would get paid.
No.
And so what did you suspect? Because something was missing out of her check?
She would.
Miss Forrest had eventually called to tell him there was a baby and that he might be the father. The way that information had been delivered after the fact, with uncertainty attached, had not given Mr. Webb the kind of confirmation that makes a man feel included in something. It had given him a question and a 2-year wait for the answer.
Get off at 10 o'clock, it would take at least 15 minutes to get home, but she would come in at 11 to 11:30.
It took about 45 minutes to get from where I was working.
So it was missing time and missing money.
Yes.
So Mr. Webb had spent time during those 2 years paying close attention to details that most people would not track. He had noted the time it took Miss Forrest to travel between work and home and had observed discrepancies in her financial records.
From my knowledge, like 3 days before he ever went into a coma.
No, Your Honor, I did not have any idea that we were split up.
Having problems.
That suggested she was supporting other people with her income. The level of analytical attention he had been giving to her behavior was the behavior of a man who suspected he was not receiving the full picture and had decided to document his suspicions rather than confront them directly.
I had called my dad for a bus ticket to Alabama. 2 hours after I got off the phone with him, I had ended up on life support.
Then the husband entered the testimony and the dynamic in the courtroom shifted. Mr. Forrest appeared to have a detailed knowledge of his wife's involvement with Mr. Webb, including things that most husbands would not casually know.
I'm sure there were some feelings because you had gotten back with your husband while he's fighting for his life.
Which I loved. I loved Mr. Webb at the time.
He seemed aware of the affair and had apparently remained in the relationship regardless. His presence in the hearing was difficult to categorize. A husband who knows about an affair, stays in the marriage, and then shows up to support his wife in a paternity court appearance involving the man she had been involved with, is operating with a set of motivations that the courtroom was trying to understand.
But we were...
You loved him.
Well, I mean...
So when you realized you were pregnant, when exactly did you realize you were pregnant?
The middle of September.
Miss Forrest had reportedly been communicating to more than one person that they might be the father of her child. The breadth of that communication suggested the conception window had more candidates than the 2 men currently in the room.
You're the father?
Well, she had told me ahead of time that I may not be the father, but there was a chance that I was the father.
So now...
And that Miss Forrest had been managing the uncertainty by keeping multiple possibilities open simultaneously. Mr. Webb had spent 2 years believing he was the relevant candidate, while the full picture of who else had received the same notification was only partially visible in the hearing.
What makes you stand in court today, Miss Forrest, and say that your husband is definitely the father?
I have counted back the times when she was born.
The timeline produced a detail that was difficult to process. Miss Forrest had been intimate with Mr. Webb on the day before his hospitalization. She had then returned to her husband almost immediately after that. Mr. Webb's mother had subsequently refused to allow Miss Forrest access to him while
August 26, 2012.
So you saying August 25th, you all were intimate?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that correct, Ms. Forrest?
he was recovering a decision that made more sense once the full context of the situation was understood. Two men had been in the conception window, and one of them was the husband who had apparently abandoned the family for the first month after the baby was born.
Without protection?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So that's intimate with Mr. Webb.
Mr. Forrest had come to the hearing with the energy of someone protecting a position rather than seeking truth. His behavior and statements in the courtroom had landed with the audience in ways he had not anticipated. The reaction he received for certain remarks was not what he had been hoping for.
You would be presumed to be the father anyway. A child born to a marriage, into a marriage, the husband is presumed to be the father.
And the gap between how he presented himself and how the room perceived him was visible to everyone, including Judge Lauren, a man who had been absent for the first month of a baby's life and was now in court appearing to manage the situation for personal reasons, was not generating sympathy from anyone present. Like and subscribe, because Mr. Forrest's reaction when the DNA result is announced is the most revealing moment of the entire hearing.
I took care of her since the day she was born. Well, a month after she was born. He ain't took care of.
Ms. Forrest had denied Mr. Webb access to the child and access to her throughout the 2 years since his return. She had brought him to court but had not been voluntarily transparent with him during the waiting period. Mr. Webb had been patient and analytical and had spent 2 years doing the kind of quiet observation.
Ms. Forrest, are you afraid he's going to take your daughter, or are you afraid he's her biological father?
I'm afraid that he's going to take my daughter.
That a man does when he has been told something significant and has not been given the tools to verify it. The hearing had now assembled all the relevant parties, and the DNA result was the only remaining participant that had been completely insulated from everyone's agenda.
Hey, son, go to take our child.
I have a belief.
2 years of waiting had led to this moment, and whatever the result confirmed would determine whether Mr. Webb's patience had been pointed at his own child or at someone else's. Mr. Forrest had come with ego management as his apparent goal. Miss Forrest had come with uncertainty she had been carrying since before the birth.
Her biological father is Mr. Webb.
Mr. Webb had come with the specific, quiet dignity of someone who had survived something serious and come back to fight for something he believed was his. Judge Lauren prepared the envelope, and the reaction that followed the reading was going to tell the courtroom everything the testimony had not.